Welcome to Midlife Reclaimed, the podcast for women ready to navigate midlife with more clarity, compassion, and energy. I'm Shannon Swales, psychologist, writer, doggy mama, and midlife woman walking this path alongside you. Twice a month, we explore real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you move through chronic stress, overwhelm, and burnout so you can reclaim your voice, your boundaries, and your joy. Please remember what you hear here is general information, not a substitute for personal therapy. This isn't about midlife crisis, it's about midlife reclamation. So let's begin. Hi, and welcome back or welcome to Midlife Reclaimed, depending on if you're a frequent viewer or listener or someone who's just stumbled upon Midlife Reclaimed for the first time. All are welcome, and I'm happy to have you here. This is actually the very last episode of this season, season 8, or actually I should say very last solo episode. We do have an exciting, well, each guest is exciting guest for the very last episode of season 8 coming up afterwards in a couple of weeks. But yeah, welcome. So in this episode today, we're actually focusing on overwhelm and getting really practical on this. Overwhelm is a word I hear to describe midlife women's experience constantly in the work that I do, and just talking to my fellow midlifers. And this midlifer as well, at one stage of her midlife, was certainly very overwhelmed. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, not that we need excuses or reasons, but it's helpful to kind of know, where's this coming from? And, there's in midlife, we're often holding a lot more emotional and mental load, just due to coinciding events in our life. There's, it can be the midlife hormonal transition for women, so the perimenopause. It can be health things coming up, which often do in our aging bodies at this time in life. It can be, senior positions, or, just work in general, whatever we're doing, running our own business. Maybe we've shifted careers, so those transitions. Maybe, we're still raising our children if we've decided or been able to do that. We're raising either little ones or teenagers, each come with their, challenges there. There's just a lot going on. And often in the midlife where you're sort of reviewing, or there's this identity, who we are, who we want to be, or there's this shedding, unraveling. I think we're getting the point. There's a lot going on. So it can be quite overwhelming, particularly for the midlife woman who tends to be and takes the role of caregiver in their family systems, maybe their work systems, but also our cultural systems too, in terms of their expectation. So yeah, overwhelm seems like a pretty understandable emotional experience to be having, but also not one that is sustainable going forward. So today's episode is not about fixing or getting rid of this overwhelm, because that can actually, and I won't go into this, there's a whole science behind it, trying to fix or get rid of actually doesn't help us prepare and be able to respond when overwhelm inevitably shows up, because it is one of the cues to tell us, cues from our body to tell us, hey, we're out of balance here, something's going on. So it's a normal human body response to go, hello, and for us then to do something about it. So if we go about trying to fix it or get rid of it because it's uncomfortable, and I get that, it's only going to make us feel anxious when it comes up again and think that there's something wrong with us, when there's nothing. I just explained there's a lot going on for you. It's more about, this episode is more about inviting different ways to ground yourself when overwhelm shows up, and doing so in ways that are accessible in this time in life where there's not a there is some things we probably can shift and change in terms of that load, but often there's not. So it's more about giving, this episode is really about giving you accessible ways to ground, and I'm going to take you through them. So it's, yeah, a very practical experiential process today. So I really encourage you to come along with me and just experiment, play, see what comes of it. You never know. And hey, if by the end you're like, none of that was for me, okay. Or if one or two things seem like something to take forward, then yay as well. But yeah, so yeah, just find your comfortable positions, grab a cuppa, whatever you do. This one would be particularly important to do when you have a bit of space for yourself, 20 or 30 minutes, or even if you only have 10, you can press pause and come back to it later. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, just a bit of a note on grounding techniques first, to help sort of bring a bit of engagement or connection to it. Because, what's the point? Why? I mean, I think some of us hear a lot about grounding techniques out there. So I just want to, I suppose, inform you to help see or connect with the value in this exercise for you. So, grounding is, well, I suppose a really great way to start with is overwhelming. When we feel overwhelmed, which is a natural and normal human emotional experience, it narrows our world. So it actually puts our mind into, or mind and body into fight, flight, freeze mode. So that threat, protect response that is very much always on, not to alarming extents, but it's our don't get killed machine basically. So it's always looking out for what can hurt us and move us towards what won't. So safety, yeah. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, one of our things that our threat system does is it narrows our thinking, it narrows our focus to attend to that threat. Now, if that was a crocodile coming at us, that would make a lot of sense because we just want to narrow our view onto that threat, either fight that off if we can, and all Australians will know that that's probably pretty much impossible, but try, or run the heck away as well. So yeah, so overwhelm will put us into that narrow focus. But for life and all this load we're carrying, that doesn't actually serve us. So what grounding does is through doing that technique, all the techniques I'll show you today, it actually helps expand our world because first we get grounded. So we get ourselves out of that threat system. We soothe that biological response. So then we're more in a position to choose what would be supportive for us next. In overwhelm, we can't think straight because again we're in threat response. It's not about thinking. All our resources are into action. We're just going to go around loops. So grounding really gets us into our body, anchors in, helps soothe our threat system so we can then choose something more helpful and useful going forward. And that's when our thinking minds work a lot more effectively. So that's the purpose of grounding. It's, yeah, really helping our nervous system to settle. It gets us really into our body because that's where things are a lot more slower up here. When we're in our threat system, it's a lot more faster and urgent. But when we're in our body, she works a lot more slower. So it's all about really a lot of the grounding techniques is about getting into our bodies, but also connecting with our sensory experience around us as well, which can help the body and mind to soothe as well and slows everything down. And we're more able to move forward. We might be going at a slower pace, but we make better decisions, if that makes sense. So that is a bit of, yeah, grounding in a nutshell. Okay, so the first one I'm going to invite you to try out is the feet on the floor. Now you can do this standing. I'm going to do this sitting. I mean, most of you are probably listening to me rather than seeing me, but you can do this standing. You can even do this walking, or you can do this sitting, but feet flat on the ground. I like to do it shoeless to really feel that connection, but whatever's accessible and doable for you. So I encourage you actually to close your eyes. If you're walking, obviously don't do that, but just soften your gaze. Uh, I just want you to, as best you can, bring your attention down into your feet, getting a sense of the feet, the soles of the feet connecting to the floor, or maybe your shoes, or the pavement, or the grass beneath you. Just allowing those thoughts about this exercise or about other things to come and go, and do your best to keep the attention down into the feet. Maybe giving a little bit of a gentle push down into the feet, really feeling that support of the ground beneath you. That there's always this earth, this flooring that holds you, holds your whole body as you move through this world. Maybe notice and stay with the parts of your feet that notices or feels the cool or warm air across, or maybe the socks or feel of your shoes. Maybe getting a sense of the temperature in your feet at the moment. And if you notice any niggling pains or things like that, just observe, but just noticing. Just let go of any thoughts about what you're noticing. Just simply observe, a bit like checking things off on a list. And again, push those feet into the floor. Feel that sense of support beneath you, that this is here. If that mind wanders back in and maybe it's into that stuff that makes you feel overwhelmed, just gently bring her back. That's normal, that's natural. Our minds will keep, our threat systems will keep pulling us up into the head. Just bring down into the body, gently, kindly, supportive intention, and connect with those feet that are being supported by the ground beneath her, the whole body supported by this ground, the earth. Okay, so that is, yeah, feet on the floor, or in mindful self-compassion, they go soles of the feet, and I think also in acceptance and commitment therapy. There's lots of therapeutic approaches and that do that grounding practice that can be, yeah, very helpful for some, of course. And I particularly like that sense of the ground supporting you. Like when we're feeling overwhelmed, where obviously not feeling at all held, and we're feeling quite messy. And I know for me, it felt like I'd been pushed off a cliff with not many, not a parachute, just tumbling, down. And that sensory experience and that words that the earth is always there to support you, it gives that sense of grounding, that like, okay, there is a parachute. I might be in this place of unknown and uncertainty, but I'm being held and supported by that chute. And yeah, but in this case, the ground, that it's always there. The earth is always there for you. Just connect with your feet. Now, another one that I love to play with my clients and with myself as well is opening up or orientating yourself to the space around you. That, again, as I mentioned earlier, when we're in overwhelm, it narrows us. That's natural and normal. It's our threat system going. So this one is, helping ground us through expansion into the world around us as well. So this one you may have heard of before. It's a slight take of the five, naming five things you can hear, see, touch, taste, smell, but just a few I'm going to take you through to help orientate you to the space around you. So again, feel free to be sitting, standing, walking. That is okay. Just making sure that there's no, you're not with your dogs or your kids or stuff, where you have to pay attention to others, just so you can pay attention to yourself. So yeah, I'm going to close my eyes because that's what I normally do when I give guided practices. So yeah. Okay. So let's first bring, with our eyes closed, just allow sound to bring your attention to sounds around you. Just let them fall upon your ears rather than searching for them, that they're there, and let's connect to them. And maybe silently naming them to yourself. Just whatever you notice, even if it's one thing or two things, or maybe five things. Let's just take a moment to connect with them. Maybe it's the sound of the air condition, sound of the breeze, your breath, my voice. And if that mind wanders, or if you get pulled up into that overwhelm, if you're feeling that at the moment, know that that's natural and normal. Just gently bring yourself back. We're building a muscle here, a skill of grounding. It will come. And some days will be better than others, and that's okay. Just keep bringing yourself back once you notice you've got caught up in something else that your attention took you away from this practice. So just staying with sounds. And then next, I want you to open your eyes and just gently move your head around your wherever you are, your space. And again, just allow things to fall upon your sight and silently name them to yourself. Yellow walls, pictures drawn by my neighbor's child and my nephew, my blackboard with my values written on them to help guide me, a fan that needs some cleaning. Just silently notice those. And the last thing I invite you to do is just to, and you might want to close your eyes again if this helps, but just allow smells to fall onto your awareness. Maybe take a deep breath in through the nose, just seeing what scents are there. Maybe if you're out in nature or in your backyard, maybe it's the earthy smell, or maybe a smell of a flower in bloom. Maybe it's an absence of smells, but just giving opportunity to connect with your space. And again, if that mind gets caught up, your attention goes back into that overwhelm or anything else that takes you away from this grounding practice, just gently and kindly bring yourself back to noticing and observing those scents just as they are. And then just bringing yourself gently back by opening your eyes or refocusing. Okay, so that is another grounding practice, orientating yourself to space. It's one that I often still do today, even though overwhelm is not a significant part of my experience mostly. These days, it's still a great practice just with day-to-day stress and being able to disconnect and give myself a bit of a break from things. So these are not just things to do in overwhelm. They're great practices to continue as a preventative measure to support our bodies and our minds and our lives as well. We are only human. So and it really particularly helps. Like I find this one because I'm very internalized. I have my mind doesn't shut the hell up. I've mostly learned to live with that, to accept that reality. But these practices do help me and help others to not get so caught up and spiral into thoughts that generate more stress or anxiety or can create more overwhelm as well. So that's maybe why I don't experience as much overwhelm as well these days. That yes, I do experience stress and anxious and low mood. I mean, all of this is normal human experiences, but these practices can really help it not turn into something worse as well.
I'm just going to pause here for a moment to share something with you. If you'd like to keep up to date with what I'm working on in the world of midlife and burnout, I invite you to join my mailing list. It's where I share updates on the resources, events, and services I offer to help you navigate midlife stress, overwhelm, and burnout with more ease and clarity. As a thank you, you'll receive my free guided journal, Journaling as a Way Back to Yourself, a gentle, at your own pace, reflective practice to slow down, listen inward, and reconnect with what matters most. You'll also get a couple of extra resources to support you in your inbox after your journal arrives. You can sign up via the link in the show notes or at shannonaswales.com/subscribe. So now back to the episode.
Now we're going to do a breathing practice, and again, this is probably not some. Oh, it's probably something that you've experienced or heard of. But even if you have, it's always great to experiment and see. There might be something a bit different, or there you might be reacquainted with something that you're like, oh, that does actually help. That happens a lot with the clients that I work with and the group of midlife women that I work with as well. So it's sometimes reorientating ourselves back. So so again, can be done anywhere. This is what's great about these grounding practices. I want them to be accessible because most midlife women, you know we've got a big load and often we can't shed that load. It's not always possible, but it is always possible to give ourselves a moment or two, 5 minutes, where we can do these practices that really gives back to ourselves. So, okay, this one's the long exhale. So let's, have a play with that. Okay. So I just want you to start with, just finding your way, whether you're walking, standing still, lying down, or sitting. Just want you to take a big breath in and then a really longer breath out. And often through the mouth for that exhale is better. So breath in through the nose. Fill those lungs, allow that diaphragm and ribs to expand out to the side. And then that long breath out, the exhale. And on the next exhale, I really invite you to really drop those shoulders, maybe rolling them up and back just to open that diaphragm, but just to allow those shoulders to relax. And also with that out breath too, just seeing if you can relax that jaw a little bit more, or even just making sure that tongue is not resting on that upper palate, just allowing it to rest too. It can all help the body to, and that nervous system to calm. So let's breathe in again and exhale through the mouth. And just maybe doing that a couple more times there for yourself, just allowing parts of your body to really sink into that relax as you breathe out. Okay. Now, breath is often, I mean, all these exercises really great to help us move into our body and move away from the head, which we often overuse, and that's okay. We live in a culture that really helps enhance our thinking capabilities, our decision making, our, all of the things, in our you know capabilities in our minds, that we tend to overuse that when we're overwhelmed, but what we actually need to do first is come into the body. So the breath is a lovely way to do that because it's there, and when we focus on it, when we give it that mindful attention, we're present with it. It well, it's something that lives in our body. It circulates through the mind, head, shoulders, chest, back, it's all throughout our body. So in terms of circulating that oxygen around, so it's a lovely way to get back into our bodies and give that attention to that, relaxing those parts of us. So yeah, I hope that was helpful for you. Okay, the next one is a bit of a favorite. This one is a self-compassionate exercise where we focus on giving compassion to ourselves through some compassionate gestures. So yeah, come along with me. And this one can be done while walking as well, or even driving, but obviously keeping your eyes open. Some of these can all be done with driving. I know a lot of women are doing lots of driving, particularly with children, but also for work. So, sometimes these practices can be adapted there, just making sure that you're safe because attention should always be on the road. But yeah, this one, okay, come along with me. Yeah. So I just invite you to either place a hand on your heart or maybe some other gesture of kindness towards yourself. Maybe it might be slowly caressing your forearm, maybe holding your hands together. Maybe it's two hands on your heart, or maybe I think we call this like a butterfly cross. You can't see it if you're listening to me, but just two hands on the chest, but crossing over. Maybe also maybe a gentle hug, or yeah, whatever. It might be a yoga pose, but finding a gesture of compassion, a bit like you would a friend. You know, if you were with your friend, would you be sitting beside them? Would you be giving them a hug? Would you be putting a hand around their shoulder? Um, just some sort of gesture towards yourself through physical touch. And just allowing, and if you haven't tried this before, maybe just popping your hand on your heart and just allowing that to be there and allowing that warmth and that palm of your hand on your chest to radiate through to your heart and throughout your body. Just allowing your attention to stay there on that connection and that intent of care, of kindness in this moment, of overwhelm, or just in this moment. Not to fix or to solve a problem, but to simply offer a moment of grounded kindness. And if touch is something difficult, instead invite you to give yourself some words of kindness. And if this is difficult, think about what you would say to a child or to your pet or to your friend if they were experiencing this, or just what you would say, and give them those, and give yourself those words instead. This is a moment of difficulty. This is hard. It's hard to be human sometimes. What do you need right now? Let's do something together. Like, let's go grab a cup of tea. Let's have a break. Maybe let's text our friend. What support do you need right now? And if you don't know, that's okay. Just allowing those words, whatever words feel right for you. You don't have to believe them or really hold them, but do so, give them with that intent of love and care like you would a friend in this moment of overwhelm. And if movement is something that is supportive, like I like to sway, just giving that to yourself, whatever support is needed right now. And just allowing that hand to drop if you've had the hand on heart, or that physical gesture and those words, just allowing that compassion that you've maybe created there for yourself to linger. And then when you're ready, coming back to your space. Okay, so that's a bit of a compassionate break there that can be very useful when we're grounded, because needing to ground when we're overwhelmed. Often, one of the things that for many of us when we're feeling overwhelmed, our threat system can get quite, can turn on us. We can become quite critical. And because the threat system is also where we, experience anger, and a lot of us have been conditioned to see ourselves as at fault if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're not coping, and I just did inverted commas because our perception of coping can be quite skewed. Even for some, the experience of overwhelmed is this perception that I must not be coping well, rather than maybe I'm carrying too much, rather so the threat system, when we're overwhelmed, we're in the threat system. We can also then get quite critical on ourselves, and Unfortunately, this doesn't actually get us anywhere except for deeper down into the pit of despair because of the shame spiral that sends us in. So, compassion can be quite, not can be, is a really great grounding practice for that because it's one of the evidence based practices for dealing with shame and dealing with self critics. So, yeah, so that could be a good one for that one. Okay, so I've got a couple more practices left, so stick with me. And yeah, let's check them out. Oh, this one is a bit like the one we did before in terms of opening up to the space around you through the senses, but it's instead through something like an object or an experience, like having a cuppa. So whatever you have in here, tea, coffee, water, juice. But the idea is to ground yourself through the senses of that experience. Because this is we're doing this when we feel overwhelmed, it's always good to do this with something that is enjoyable. I mean, we could ground through typing on our computers while we're writing a report. Whilst that can help, deal with any thinking mind stuff that might be creating extra suffering when writing that report, like the self-doubt story, I wouldn't choose that for overwhelm. I would be choosing something like I love my coffee in the morning and my cups of tea during the day. I also like the feel of my clothing on my skin. And even actually my plants behind me. I'm one of those ones who, will sit there and actually touch my plant. So anyway, choose an object that or experience. It can be while you're walking too and just enjoying that, but come along with me with this practice. Okay, so whether you're outside connecting with the weather around you, or you're sitting with your cup of tea or coffee, what I encourage you to do now is to really come into your senses with this experience. So, yeah, first of all, just really taking in the smells, as you're out there in nature, looking up to the sky, taking in that experience. Just allow your senses to take that in. So through your nose, through your eyes, maybe even that sense with outside, also with your body and that warmth that maybe the sun's providing or the coolness of the breeze. Just allowing yourself to experience that, letting go of any of those thoughts or feelings of overwhelm and giving all your mindful attention to the experience of these senses, wherever you are. If you've got a tea or coffee, maybe taking it up to your mouth and really smelling it as you take a sip and allowing, maybe slowing it down and letting that sip and that taste to really, explode there in your mouth and just getting a sense of the warmth of the tea or the coffee in the cup. Just really connecting through the sense of touch and taste and smell. Just really allowing the attention to stay there. And whenever it wanders, and it will, just bring it back as gently and kindly as you can. Just allowing you to ground through the sense of that experience, this really beautiful moment of time just for you. Allow that tea, that sun, that wind, that whatever it is, soothe your soul, ground you into your experience. And when you're ready, you can bring yourself back to your space. What I love about this one is that, you can do it. I mean, all of these you can do on the go, but it very much is on the go. Like we have cups of teas and coffees all the time, right? Or we have a glass of water, we can choose in that moment for it to be a grounding moment. And it's often these moments that we can be in our heads and we can be going over things that are creating more overwhelm. So they're great opportunities reactively, to respond to that experience of overwhelm, but they're also great experiences just to do on a day-to-day basis to, yeah, proactively support our nervous system. So yeah, there's a grounding on the go technique there.
I want to pause here and offer something deeply personal for anyone feeling depleted or stuck in stress, overwhelm, or burnout. My book, Nothing Left to Give, A Psychologist's Path Back from Burnout, shares my real-life story of hitting a wall in 2021. Burnout, compassion fatigue, and resurging mental health struggles that forced me to leave my work and rebuild from the ground up. It's not just a memoir, it's filled with practical tools and reflections to guide you towards rest, reclaim your sense of self, and resist that pressure of constant caring going outwards, perfectionism, people-pleasing, toxic independence, all of that. You can find this book both in ebook and paperback via Amazon, or just head to the show notes for the link, or shannonaswales.com/burnout-book for the links. And now let's get back to the episode.
Okay, the one last one. This one's more using our mental. Like we've done a lot of body and sensory stuff and breath. This one is more, help up here in our heads, but more about a question that we can ask ourselves. Now, this comes from overwhelm, as I think I mentioned earlier. Overwhelm, keeps us up in our heads, and we can spiral. And often overwhelm, because it is in the threat system, makes us look at everything. Because again, the don't get killed machine survival mode is all about, making sure we don't miss anything. So it's very detailed, and it's very much large picture, and making sure that we don't forget anything. And so, and this can cause even more overwhelm because it just seems too big, too hard. I mean, I think about when I was burnt out and unable to work, and I was like spiraling to that overwhelm. And one, getting better, and what was I going to do there? I was so tired and exhausted and having energy for that. What was I going to do for a living? If I'm not a psychologist, what am I going to do? Who am I? Like you can start to get the picture there. It just thinks about everything, because of course that's a very threatening time, and I'm not eliminating that or discounting that, but at the same time it doesn't help us approach it. So all those other grounding techniques and I did use them back then, are helpful, but this mental one is more about just one thing. I call it just one thing, the next thing. So trying to ground yourself through that question is, and I've got this written down, so I'm just looking at what is the one next thing, what truly needs my attention right now. So just trying to, use questions, and whatever feels right for you. They're just my examples, but what's one thing that I can do now? I like to, and this comes from acceptance and commitment therapy as well, as, when I'm able to notice I'm in that overwhelm, and I say, oh, there's my mind, trying to deal with everything at once. So it's sort of noticing and naming that. We're not trying to challenge that. We're just seeing it for what it is, which is, that threat reaction, just like here she is trying to solve everything at once. That's not going to work. And then redirect to, hey, what's one thing that we can do right now? Almost like a conversation with myself, like let's, it's almost like a wiser part of ourselves who's like, we know that doesn't work. And she's, we might need to ask ourselves that question a couple of times, because the overwhelm is still like, the threat system's off, but just gently and calmly just go, yeah, what's one next thing that we can do? I think, or what can be useful sometimes is writing down things that you find, writing these questions down as a bit of a prompt. What's just one thing, and do that thing, and do it with grounded, you might, pair this one with one of the other grounded techniques to really help you. Some of these might be, best used in combination as well. So I won't run you through that one, but come up with, either use that question or come up with something else. But the idea is just try and do your best to focus on one thing and take that action, just one thing. And I remember, one of the things that I would just focus on daily in the early days of being out of work and unwell was, I focused on each day, go for the walk with the dogs, which was something I didn't often get to do because of the long hours at work, but it was something that was, I suppose, ingrained into something important for me to do, because I actually only had one dog back then, but I've got two now. But, just, doing that. I mean, I did it for her, but also for me. So, but that helped me get out there. But that was just like, that was my one thing, because that was something I could do. I had the energy to do. Um, and even if it was just for 5 minutes, I did that. And just one thing. I would often get overwhelmed though, because I'm a high achiever. I'm used to doing lots of things. So there was definitely, a lot of grounding happening. But that's just an example of that. Do one thing. And eventually there was another thing. I mean, I was doing day-to-day things too, getting up, you know, um, breathing, having a shower, shit like that, doing my exercise as well, which was, I was already in a pattern of my gym, but that was the other thing I did. And eventually therapy and things like that. So yeah, just one thing at a time. Mm. So something that I want to leave on is that, and I think I've mentioned already, that you can combine some of these practices, and definitely experiment and play. Like that's what we've done today. But if you feel pulled to one, just continue to experiment and play with that. If that feels that you need a little bit more or want to try something else, do so. Remember that it isn't about fixing. If you get fixated on that, it won't have the effect that it would, because we need to be present and attending to mindfully these practices to actually experience groundedness. But if our mind is hyper vigilant and waiting or looking for the signs that it's working, we won't actually get the benefit. It's a bit like expecting to get better without taking, like let's say you have a full-on infection, expecting to get better without taking antibiotics that is needed for that infection. Like we actually need to be mindfully present in these things as best as we can, to benefit. So having our mind vigilant on the outcome won't help. So there's that. But and it doesn't have to be big. We often think that we need these big moments of groundedness or time of our own or space or, hour-long massages or something. But these things, 5 minutes a day accumulates. It's like I say to people I'm working with who are burnt out, that burnout is cumulative. It's not just one event that sends us overboard. It's cumulative, but so are the practices that help our nervous system recover, help us set up our lives to actually be sustainable. So it's one thing at a time. It will get you there and get you there in much better shape. It's not the fastest who gets there. Just one step at a time. These are cumulative. So take these small moments. It makes me think of this one guy many moons ago that I worked with that chose to do a mindful minute, which was a grounding practice for him several times throughout the day. And he had one of those smart watches, and he just set an alarm to remind him. And the mindful minute was on his smartwatch. And you think your brain goes, oh, that won't make much of a difference. It did, because it accumulated. So keep that in mind with these practices. If your mind's saying, oh, that's too simple to actually work, complexity doesn't equal, what will work. Sometimes it's the very simple things that actually work, and we just do them consistently, right? So yeah, keep that in mind. So I hope this episode has been somewhat helpful for you, and love to hear your thoughts on it too. So feel free to share if you can, on wherever you're listening or watching. Comment. Be sure to follow as well, because there's some exciting changes around the corner. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but I'm going to take some time away from the pod to just really rethink things and the direction. It's still going to be in the midlife space and for women, and just what that will look like might change a little bit, but definitely going to stay in the same space. I just want to thank everyone for supporting the podcast, whether you're a frequent listener, watcher, or someone who jumps in every now and again, or new here right now. That's cool. Appreciate checking in, because I do this, well, because I love to chat, but I do this because I love to share what I know, particularly in emotional and mental health and well-being, because it's something my journey of life has certainly taken me on, personally, but also professionally. And because it was a gap that I and many people experience from their upbringing, not having the tools and the strategies on that. And not pointing, there's no point pointing the fingers. We didn't have elders who could, share that with us, because they didn't know, but we know, so much now, and there's so much more accessibility. And that's why I do this podcast, is a great way to share that wisdom, but also feel connected to people out there that are living this time of life as well, fellow midlifers. Sometimes I say that I'm a fellow midlife traveler, but also, a psychologist and coach that lives and breathes this area of emotional and mental well-being, but particularly in that burnout and midlife space for women. So anyway, thank you for coming along for the ride. This is, as I said, my very last solo episode, but stay tuned, certainly for my last guest episode, where we'll have a very someone I met a few years back now, who was very supportive and helpful in my burnout recovery and return to the profession. And she's going to come to speak to her area and what she does, which is a lot around expressive therapies. She's a music therapist, and she works in the burnout space, particularly with a lot of health professionals. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation with her and bringing that to you as well. But I feel like I've done enough rambling with you. I look forward to coming back in the future and seeing you guys. Take care of you. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Midlife Reclaimed. I hope today's conversation has reminded you that you are not alone, and that change is possible even in the busiest seasons of life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, rate, or review the podcast and share it with another midlife woman who might need it. For more resources on navigating midlife stress, overwhelm, and burnout, along with reflective writing prompts and community connection, visit shannonaswales.com. You can also watch full episodes on YouTube at Midlife Reclaimed. Remember, you have permission to slow down, to rest, and to reclaim what matters most. See you again soon.